Just call it Megahorn, damn it. We opened this one with the girls enjoying some ice cream when, Really? Y'all gonna force me into my overly analytical mode this early into the review? Okay. So yeah, this kid's a Rakugo artist, basically a comedic storyteller. It's a very traditional piece of Japanese theater that follows some very strict and disciplined protocols, having even been originally created by Buddhist monks during the feudal era to kind of lighten the mood during their sermons. It even caught on with the daimyo as they kind of turned the artist into their personal court jesters. Though as a result, the art has lasted to this very day, even if it is a bit more of an acquired taste. Yeah, while I can't say anything as though I've ever actually seen a Rakugo performance, it does seem like it's mostly just someone sitting around telling stories and occasionally throwing in a few puns here and there. Nothing wrong with that, as comedy is extremely subjective, and I do have to admire the amount of discipline that goes into it as someone who did train at a Buddhist temple for several years. And if anything, I would watch it over any late night talk shows these days. Still, I'm not too interested in the stuff unless it involves some decent character drama or a bunch of cute girls who make surprisingly timeless jokes. Anyway, back to this show. This kid was clearly still in training, as I think even Aruto would cringe at some of these puns. But as I said, comedy is very subjective, and I guess this girl kind of liked his material. Though personally, I think Miyako was the much funnier character in this situation. But yeah, obviously he just wanted to impress the ice cream girl, which to his credit, he was succeeding at, much to the ire of her father, J. Jonah Jameson? Also, bring back as many photos of Spider-Man as you can. We can still capitalize on that new film. But yeah, Jameson, being the doting father, didn't want his daughter dating any guy, much less a Rakugo artist, whom he viewed as the inferior form of classical theater. Yep, this dude was a bit of a theater snob who thought kabuki was inherently superior just because it could generate more emotions than just laughter. And of course, not only was the Rakugo artist not trained in such, he also didn't want to have to put on all of the required makeup, but would have to when he got in contact with one of him's particles that he released in the previous episode. This was all explained to us through, I have one. Can you fix that fourth wall on your way out? But yeah, because of that, the Rakugo artist turned into something that almost feels like it's gonna get this video demonetized for being culturally insensitive. Guess it was only a matter of time before Toei decided to be racist towards their own country. To say the least, this kabuki monster liked anything resembling subtlety, so he wasn't gonna generate any sort of emotions other than annoyance. So to compensate, he just forced out the tears with his kabuki beams. And he used it on everyone, including the girls, preventing them from transforming. They tried to get the pros to initiate transformation, but they were all sleeping and had surprisingly good English. Yeah, that's not subtitles, that's actually in the show for whatever reason. No, maybe they're paying tribute to that awesome I'm a Supergirl music video, even though that didn't exactly have perfect Japanese. Eventually, everyone's crying resulted in an Alice in Wonderland effect, and they were literally drowning in their own tears. Jeez, that could not be sterile. Surprisingly though, they actually kept this ridiculous scenario somewhat realistic by having the overflow of tears end up filling up some trenches. I mean, there is a reason for establishing this stuff for later, but it also does feel a little needless and yet kind of adds to the surrealism of all of this. Anyway, the pros were able to wake up partially enough that they were able to deploy the girls in their sleep, which was good enough to activate their belts. Powerpuff Girls Z! Oh, I get now. He's a character from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Long time no see!
Unable to get close due to the monster's beams, Momoko came up with a rather clever plan to take advantage of the Rakugo artist that still resided in the monster. And this led into something I think even the Phoenix Wright games would call a little weird. Still, it was enough to distract the monster and allowed them to defeat him and turn him back to normal. However, the ice cream girl got swept up in the trenches, leaving it in the hands of the Rakugo artist to save her. He did, and being grateful, Jameson let him date his daughter, though as it turned out, he might have been trying to protect the kid from her makeup that would probably give the entire Tropical Rouge team heart attacks. Couldn't agree more. The second half of the episode opened with some real-life Mushi King, either that or Pokemon for you normies. Yeah, fun fact, the founder of Game Freak, Satoshi Taji, allegedly came up with a lot of the original concepts for Pokemon based off of his time of collecting bugs during his childhood. Pretty much all of the major mechanics of Pokemon were based off of his real-life experiences, from capturing them to using previously collected ones to weaken the big guys, and of course having them battle each other. Highly doubt that they had Pokemon centers that could bring them back from some really severe injuries, but let's not get into that, shall we? Meanwhile, Mushi King was more of a direct translation of that same concept. It was a collectible card game and an arcade cabinet that, as far as I can tell, never spread out beyond Japan and other Asian countries, though it still became very popular to the point that they made whole tournaments around it, and it even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records for that. Oh, that said though, I'm gonna stick with the Pokemon references because that's really all I know. Anyway, our main heroines, except for of course Kaoru, weren't too much into this stuff. Pity, because their schoolmate Rod was their local champion, mostly thanks to Eevee training. Yeah, apparently there is some bug feed out there that can make them stronger, but it also often has the adverse effects of shortening their lifespans, so it had been banned from official tournaments. That said, I guess there was no way of checking for bug doping, so Rod just doubled down on the stuff and ignored the health of his little friends. You know Bugsy would have a field day with this little brat. Okay, to be fair, he did have his reasons, with his classmates previously having made fun of his hobby, only for them to quickly change their tone as soon as he won his first tournament. It's a basic, though competently told tale of how stardom can end up corrupting an otherwise innocent passion. And it was this very corruption that attracted him Sparkles, though this time not to the human, but rather one of his Cocoxus beetles. Meanwhile, Ken also happened to be a bug trainer with his Heracross that he nicknamed Kohei because of course you always have to flex by nicknaming your guys. And of course, he also considered Eevee training, but Kaoru wasn't gonna let him. Casual versus competitive Pokemon players in a nutshell. And after a pretty entertaining little training montage, Ken and Kohei were a much stronger team, and I gotta say, I liked how Kaoru ended up taking on a bit of a supportive big sister role here. It hinted later developments for her, as well as kind of became the start to a little side arc over these next few episodes, where Ken gets some decent character development. And yeah, it also kinda makes up for their previous abuse of the kid back in episode 4, as this time, Kaoru's training was for much less selfish reasons. Anyway, as a result of their training, Ken made it to the finals of the tournament where the blue to his red was waiting. Now, originally, I was going to do a Heracross versus Pinsir reference here, but that's more of a beetle versus a stag beetle, and this is a beetle versus a Cocoxus beetle. That said though, I can still do this reference. Hell, that film came out just a few months after this episode aired, so that cannot be a coincidence. But yeah, Kohei managed to carve a path to heaven and defeat his rival. However, his opponent proved to be a sore loser, as I'm pretty sure Dynamaxy is banned from competitive play. The girls engaged it and defeated the bug with some well-placed sweets in again a decent fight, as they did get fairly creative. But the real takeaway was Kohei defending his owner while Rod's bug turned against him. This made him realize the error of his ways in a rather cliched manner that wouldn't feel out of place in the actual Pokemon anime. With that, the episode ended with a cockroach just coming out of nowhere to give Momoko and Miyako a scare. Guess they can go join Misty's support group. This was another bit of a nothing episode. I mean, nothing bad or great, just more of the standard Monster of the Week fare. Now, of course, that on its own isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as the story is entertaining, which the Kabuki monster half of this episode just did not deliver on with an overly weird-ass villain. Though the bug wrestling half wasn't bad, as at least we got some development for Ken and Kaoru, even if the story was a little cliched. On top of that, there was at least some important plot development, so at least it wasn't a total bust. Usually, I am a bit of a fan of uncomedy, you know, when comedic characters fail to get the reaction they were expecting. Thus, I did like it when the Rakugo artist only got a reaction from the ice cream girl and a delayed one from Miyako, and the character himself was pretty likable. I mean, he had the voice of Vash the Stampede for God's sake. That said, when he became the Kabuki monster, things just kind of got awkward, especially that resolution. Thankfully, the bug wrestling story did hold up better, as we did get to see a different side to Ken and even kind of Kaoru. The former was able to show that for all of his bookworminess, he did like to participate in some average kid activities. Meanwhile, the latter proved that while she can be rough, she also does want to bring out the best in her friends, in particular the younger Ken. And it was both wholesome and helped to distinguish this version of the Green Powerpuff from her OG counterpart. Plus, both stories did help to introduce the threat of him's dark particles that helped to freshen up this show's rogues gallery, even if the first two were kind of meh. So, overall, I would say the bug wrestling half was worth the watch just for Kaoru and Ken, while the Kabuki half, yeah, I would say you're better off just go watching Showa Genroku or Joshiraku if you like slice of life written by the author Sayonara Zetsubo sensei. Hope everyone had a happy new year and are looking forward to 2022. For me, on top of doing the usual thing, I'm thinking about starting up a secondary channel more focused on some non-magical girl stuff, in particular card game anime. First up on the docket, we'll be focusing on a certain Game King and ranking the openings for his franchise, followed by a slightly lesser known game that I want to put a little focus on. Hopefully y'all will look forward to that. And until then though, farewell for now my friends, and what's that? Bushi King is in the Yakuza games? Oh, well, I should look that up and ooh. I haven't shown anything yet!